Welcome everyone to tonight's event. We're so excited to have you all here to give you a little bit of an introduction and background for those of you that are new to Ladies at UX. Ladies at UX is a global community of women in UX who support each other, push UX boundaries, and promote women's skills and talent in our field. And tonight's event is a joint partnership between Ladies at UX Boston and Ladies at UX Seattle, which are 2 out of almost 50 Ladies at UX chapters globally. So my name is Lara Kaveza, and I'm one of the co-organizers of Ladies at UX Boston, along with Katie Langerman and Olga Perfelieva, who are probably waving right now if you can see them. And I'm going to hand things off to Katrina, one of the co-organizers of Ladies at UX Seattle, so she can tell you a little bit about their chapter as well.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. And thank you so much, Lara. Yeah, I'm super excited to partner with the Boston chapter on this event tonight. On our end, we have Rosie, Lillian, and Yila as our organizers. So thank them for putting this everything together for tonight's event, and I'm super excited to hear from Meena and Megan tonight. So just give a quick intro of so this is a part of the leadership series, which is something we started back in April this year, and so the idea is that we started this initiative for the community to connect with UX leaders, ask questions, and share experience, so that our events in the leadership series are a little bit more targeted to mid-levels, to more senior level. However, anybody who are interested in learning about leadership is welcome to join. And so yeah, and then one quick note is that we have a upcoming event that's called Emerging Experience. It's coming up and we will be posting it on the Seattle chapters meetup page. And so I'll share the meetup page in the chat in a minute so you can join. And I just want to say welcome. And maybe you can tell us where you're calling from, or like from Boston or Seattle or anywhere else out of that, just for us to know. And with that, I'm going to turn the stage back to Laura. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Katrina. So just a few housekeeping items before we dive into the talks tonight. This event will be recorded and posted on our YouTube channel. So if there's anything that you missed or you want to share it with friends, you can do that later. And then also, it's really important that our events are a safe space, whether offline or online. So please take a look at our code of conduct, which you can find in the footer on our website. But the short version is we will not tolerate any forms of harassment at our events. And you can use the chat to reach out to the co-organizers of the event. So please reach out to us for anything that we can do to ensure a safe space. And then finally, like Katrina said, we want to hear from you. So please introduce yourself in the chat. Tell us your name, where you're from. Tell us if you are hiring or if you're looking for a job. We'd love to hear from you. All right. So tonight, we are going to hear from 2 speakers on the topic of authentic leadership as part of the Ladies at UX Leadership Series. So Katie, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. Thank you. Here's our agenda for the evening. After each talk, we're going to have a few minutes for Q&A, and then we'll have a breakout session for opportunities to meet other folks with some questions to help guide your discussion around authentic leadership. So with that being said, let's get started. The first speaker that we're going to be hearing from tonight is Megan Robinson, who is a principal at eLeader Experience, and she's going to be talking to us about becoming a natural leader, the 4 pillars of self-leadership. So Megan, take it away. Oh, you're muted. Yep.
Already off to a start there. Thank you so much. I am using my super fun new Zoom background, so everyone please enjoy the virtual background. But thank you so much, Laura, for introducing me. As you mentioned, my name's Megan, and I am so excited to be here with you guys tonight. We're going to have a really great a lot of fun. I've got a lot of topics to cover about being a natural leader and how that really applies to your self-leadership. And I love this topic and this name because I feel that leadership often feels so distant from us. It feels so esoteric, it feels so far away. And being a natural leader only continues to cloud our abilities and make us think that, wow, can I really be a leader? Do I have to have this natural innate ability within me? And I want to just encourage everyone to kind of park all of that baggage and demystifying the fact that no one is a natural leader And we all have the ability to really achieve leadership for ourselves, for our teams, for our communities, for our families. Leadership's really kind of all around us. And so I look at this leadership as, how do you define being a leader? Because that's one of the most difficult things for people to understand, is what is really leadership. And I use John Maxwell's quote for leadership, where leadership is just influence. It's nothing more, it's nothing less. And for me, this kind of starts to quiet all the little voices in my head and all the imposter syndrome of what it means to be a leader, because we all need to have influence. There's always opportunities for us to increase our influence. There's always things that we need to do in order to get stuff done that requires influence. And I was actually reading a study the other day where they talked to 140 different CEOs of different companies. And they asked them all, what does it mean to be a leader? How do you define leadership? And they actually got 140 answers. So as much as you can think, leadership is something different to everyone, at the core of what it really means to lead or to be a leader, it's really just to influence. So when I think about leadership and the influence, it really makes everyone need to have some leadership abilities, because it's not just the CEO that needs to be a good leader. So I look at influence as that basis and core foundation of how to be a leader. So I look at, where does our influence come from? And I love Stephen Covey in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This is not new. It's something that's out there for a long time, and it's super classic. But he really looks at what your circle of influence is and what your circle of control is. So everyone has their own little universe, their own little solar system. And at that center of it is where you're in control. And that means you have complete authority of everything that you're able to do. For example, you control when you go to sleep, you control what you're going to wear, you control what you're not going to wear. Thank you, Zoom, for all my pajama bottoms. And because this obviously looks like an egg, you control how you cook your eggs in the morning, or even what you have for breakfast. And that's really all that you can control. But when you look at the world around you and everything that's happening, you also have a circle of influence outside of that. And that circle of control, I'm a little bit of a control freak, if you can't tell. But I like to look at that circle of control and always go back to, what can I control? What can I do? But the circle of influence is where that leadership happens. And everything around us has a lot that we can't control. So you can't control your client's decisions. You can't control when your boss emails you at 9 p.m. You can't control whether or not my friend Meena is going to come over for brunch with me. Sorry, Meena, I meant to invite you over for brunch, by the way. But those pieces aren't within your control, but they are within your influence. So I can ask her really nicely. I can try and convince her to come over. Maybe she is going to check out my Instagram feed and look at all my super awesome egg pictures and be like, yes, I totally want to go to brunch with her. All of those things are things that I can, yep, right? Who doesn't want some eggs on stuff? All of those are pieces that you can control or you can influence. And so when we look at the difference there, it's the ambiguity that really supports us on where we want to focus. So when we want to influence more of our family, our friends, how we collaborate, whether or not we win a pitch, all of those pieces aren't necessarily within our control, but they are within our circle of influence. And for me, nothing illustrates this more than your first group project. I don't know, college or high school, when you had to do collaborative projects and you tried to divide up all the work evenly, and there was only so much that you could control in that project and that you wanted to do and produce, and the rest of it relied for your circle of influence, because you really want to have a good grade at the end of it. So whether or not it's within your control or outside of your control is where it really expands to your circle of influence. I think nothing illustrates this better for me than, I'm still on the some e-cards, which I know is probably about a decade old for most people, but I hate it when I plan my day and nobody follows the script, right? This is like a classic control freak. I looked at a lot of control freak memes where I have everything laid out. I know exactly what I want to do. I know exactly where I'm going to be. I have my circle of control where I think I've got it all planned out. But the circle of influence and what happens throughout that day, that's really where the leadership needs to show up. And that's the most challenging part. So I look at it as, how can you lead yourself first? Where Covey really likes us to have a focus on where we can create impact, which is again on that circle of control. And when you have that proactive, positive focus on it, that's where your circle of influence actually starts to expand. And that's where that self-leadership first really helps you gain more influence and more leadership for others. And when I look at whoever a natural leader is, it's because they're doing their own self-leadership. It's because they're internally driven and focused and know where they're going, that other people want to follow them on that journey. So I look at what is within that circle of control and how do I focus on it? Because this is about how to be a better self-leader. So we need to know where we can start. So I look at what we can say, right? We are 100% control in what we say. Even the emotional word vomit that comes out of our mouths every once in a while is within our control. So what we say really, really matters when we're leaders, when we're focusing on what we can do. And women use an average of 20,000 words a day. The average book is 100,000 words. So every single week, you're writing your own story. You're speaking an entire novel. And so choosing the words that you say really has an impact on your circle of influence. The second thing is what we do, right? We're 100% control. Like I said, you can make breakfast, you choose what you're going to wear. When it comes to leadership, my favorite quote that people love to say is, do as I say, not as I do. And I don't know how that ever came into existence, but I'm going to face it, it doesn't actually work. No one in their right mind says, yes, totally, I'm going to do what you say, and then ignore everything that happens for what you do. And really, I look at that as lazy leadership. No one wants to follow that person. They're inauthentic. They're not doing what they say they're going to do. They're not being a leader. They're not setting that example. Next one is you're in control of what you think. And this is one of those unique things. I'm not going to go to all the neuroscience of it, but humans are some of the most intelligent organisms on Earth. And we have the ability to think and react to situations, but we also imagine and reflect. When we're being able to reflect on stuff, that's where we do the deeper work. That's where we do the deeper analysis that helps us grow and helps us be better leaders. So we're able to plan for the future. So the final thing within your circle of control, what everything kind of falls into, is how you feel. And emotions are all kind of icky and sticky sometimes, but really how you feel, you have quite a bit of control over it. And I saw conflicting research on this, but it's anywhere between 6 to 90 seconds is what it takes for a reaction for you to happen in the body. Emotional, visceral reaction. You see something, you're afraid, you feel something, you're happy, you're in love, whatever it is, 90 seconds, your brain starts pumping hormones and chemicals throughout your body and it's absorbed. After 90 seconds, it's actually your choice on whether or not you want to continue to fuel that emotion or whether or not you want it to stop. So if you've spent all day worried about something or belaboring a point or fighting with someone over something that you don't even care about anymore because you're emotionally attached to it, that's a decision that you're making. And it's something that you are actually able to change. So when we think about what we can say, what we do, what we think, what we feel, as the core elements of within our circle of control, these really affect our leadership in a couple different ways. What you say, do, think, and feel affects what your direction is, what your responses are, and your approach. All those elements really start coming out in a leadership. So we're going to take a couple minutes and just quick hit these ones and talk about what you can say, do, think, and feel so that you can have better direction, you can have a stronger response, and you can really attract your approach so that people are able to take notice. So first one, your direction. And I love talking about vision building and goal setting. And let's face it, nobody wants to follow a leader that doesn't have direction. That's like the core principle, right? You got to know if you're going to have influence, what are you influencing? What's your end game? Why do you want that? And so I look at really that direction or that vision as three different components. You've got the vision, the how, and the why, and they all work together to create a really strong direction. First piece is that vision. And I'm not going to vision board you, don't worry. But a vision should really be a clear, vivid picture. You have to have that clear goal of what you want it to look like. You know what the end is, you know what the result is. And I love Mark Limpton's quote where he defines vision as a vivid picture of a specific destination that's both descriptive and challenging. So no one has a vision of what am I going to eat for breakfast this morning. Again, I'm really focused on the breakfast today. I want to do breakfast for dinner, so that's coming up later. But you really want to have a vision that's going to challenge you. It's something in the future, and it's very, very clear picture. The second component to a really strong direction is having a strong how. This is what your plan is. This is the goals, the benchmarks, the little pieces that chart your path towards that bigger vision. And most people really want to stop there, or they get one or two components. They're like, yeah, I've got a plan. Maybe they don't have an end goal and picture in mind. But the plan's always the easiest part, at least for me, because again, control freak, love to plan. But the third element to having a really strong direction is your why. And that why is what fuels you. It's what motivates you. It's what gives you a connection to why this vision is so important to you and what's going to keep you going when the going gets tough. So not everyone has all three of these components, right? But having one or two is always a good start, but you can always work on getting more of them. And when I combine those three elements into what you can say, do, think, and feel, that vision is really what you should be thinking about, right? You're thinking and focusing on it and playing that in your mind. The how is what you're saying and doing. Those are the actions that you're taking. It's how you're executing on that plan. And that why is how you feel about it. And being in touch with all of those components together is what's going to propel you forward. So I don't know if anyone's had to plan a wedding before, but that's typically a really great place where you have a clear vision. You know exactly what your wedding wants to look like. Maybe you've got a great Pinterest board, but you're really picturing everything together. I'm hoping you have a really strong why, at least that you love the person, or another emotional connection to it. But maybe, you also have a why of how you want that wedding to feel. Do you want it to feel casual? Do you want to feel elegant? Do you want it to be intimate? Do you want it to be inclusive? All of those feelings of how you put that vision together are really, really strong because that affects what you say and what you do. You are going to have tons of questions and tons of plans and actions, and having those other pieces help align you all the long way. I remember for some reason my grandmother called me and asked me what she should wear to the wedding, which I thought was very sweet, but also knowing my vision and my why, I wanted her to be comfortable. I knew I didn't care what she wore. I think I told her, just please don't wear white. But she's grandma, so she could probably get away with it in the end. But when you want to have a really strong direction, putting what you say, do, think, and feel into that is what's going to channel your energy and give you even more strategy and power. The second element here is our response. And response is really, really tough to talk about right now because we're all responding. We can be reactive or we can choose to respond. And this has been one heck of a year, and we're all building up how we want to respond to whatever is thrown at us, because that's all outside of our circle of control, right? But what's in our circle of control is how we want to respond to it. So the real high level, what emotional intelligence is really how you're going to respond to things. And I'm going to take you through like lightning round what emotional intelligence is on the surface. So we've got two elements of emotional intelligence. You've got yourself and you've got the social ability. Notice how self is 50% of emotional intelligence. It's kind of my favorite thing about emotional intelligence. You got to know yourself first, right? Second two components of emotional intelligence is recognition and regulation. Self, social, regulation, recognition, these are putting together all the different areas of how to be emotionally intelligent. And when you fill in those buckets, you've got the self and your recognition in it is that self-awareness of knowing how you're feeling about something, those emotions. The self and the regulation is how you're going to manage it. On the social side, you've got to have some social awareness and relationship management for sure. Anyone that's been in a relationship, anyone that talks with people, know what it's like to be socially aware of how they're feeling about something, or maybe what they might feel about it. If I leave a bunch of dirty dishes in the sink, I'm going to hear about it. Someone's going to have an emotional response to that. I may want to manage that a little bit more in the future. I also know myself enough to know that when I get angry or when I'm feeling really excited about something, I may be a poor decision maker. So I really want to be able to manage that. And when it comes to emotional intelligence, again, focusing on the 50% that you can control and building up that awareness for it and how you're going to manage it goes into 2 to 3 processes for you. And the first thing is to recognize what and why. What's going on? Why do I feel that way? Why is a really great question to dive deeper into it. But even just recognizing what is it that I'm feeling right now, it's going to take you way further and give you a little bit of distance from that emotion so that you're able to respond how you want to respond and not just be a victim to those emotions. The why part is going to dive a lot deeper and give you a lot more work to do. But it's really diving into the second part, which is that regulation, and it's that choice. You have a choice on how you want to respond. You choose what you're going to say, do, think, or feel. We have a 90-second window there, right? Where we're going to feel it. We're going to have all the chemicals pumping through us. But after that subsides, you still have these options. And when it comes to self-leadership and what happens in a tense situation, what happens in a easy situation even, how you respond to that is really going to determine what type of a leader you are. And the best example of this I have is getting feedback. Feedback is a part of life. It's a part of business. Some of it's positive feedback, some of it's negative feedback. But if someone's about to give you some feedback, or if they do give you some feedback, your reaction to that is going to be strong, whether you want it to or not. And you've really got to focus on what you're choosing to think or feel, choosing what you want to say or do in order to respond in the way that you want to. If you've ever had to quit a job, if you've ever had to fire someone, these are all really strong emotional places where you need to really think about what you're feeling, why you're feeling that, so that you're able to choose a different outcome. So the last one that I've got is your approach. And I'm really sorry, my gift game is normally a little bit better, but it's not going to work on this background. So we're going to look at how you communicate. And so high level models of communication, we've got 3, right? I think some people have heard this before, some people may not have heard this before, but we're all incredibly aware of it. And that's that we communicate through body language, tonality, and words. That's typically how we receive all of our information. That's how we're communicating with each other. Unfortunately, guys, words is 7% of our ability to communicate. So when we're texting, when we're writing an email, we're only using 7% of our ability to communicate what we're thinking, feeling, what we need that other person to know. So this is why that email chain, sometimes it just works to pop on a quick call, talk it out with someone, because you always read an email negatively. No one ever hopes that the email is positive. And if there's any scent of cynicism in it, we're all just reading the words because we're adding our own tonality to it. Email has no tone. 38% of your ability to communicate. So if you just pick up the phone, you have quadrupled 5 times. Sorry, I don't know the word, quintupled your ability. Your ability to communicate. And that's really important because especially if it's in a tense situation, if it's an easy situation, if it's a relationship building, you need to be able to communicate as effectively as possible. So for everyone that's doing math out there, that means body language is a whopping 55% of our ability to communicate. So I know we're in a Zoom world these days. I've been on Zoom for a while with clients because I can actually communicate. I can read their body language. I get so much more of what they're saying, what their feedback is. If I'm showing creative to them, and I have a project, they're able to get more information and we have a higher ability to communicate. So my favorite sea witch, I think, illustrates this the best. And I'm not going to say it out loud, but I'm sure in your head you're playing what Ursula likes to say about body language, because let's face it, Ariel can't talk for like half the movie. So when we look at what we're communicating and how that is within our sphere of control, what we're saying is that 7%. What we're thinking and feeling is going to cover up that 38%. And then what we're doing is going to be that 55%. So just a little bit of food for thought as you're going through your communication and what you want to be saying, because I think that Schitt's Creek does the absolute best job of reading body language. In this, it's an, oh my gosh, no, yes reaction that we're seeing here. So he's so quick to turn it, and immediately you see that body language from shaking his head no to nodding it yes. I don't know if you've ever been in a meeting with someone where they're like, yeah, I really want to do that. And their head is just shaking back and forth no, and they're so closed off to it, you can't take the words they're saying seriously. So I want to leave you with one of my favorite quotes from Buddha, which is, I know how cliche of me, right? What you think, you become. What you feel, you attract. And what you imagine, you create. And I think that ties up your self-leadership incredibly importantly. So my big question to you is, how are you leading yourself?
Thank you, Megan. That was great.
It's really quiet.
Yeah.
I'm used to hearing all like little
Everyone's
audio bits. Yeah.
We've got a couple of minutes for questions for Megan. So if anybody has questions, you can post them in the chat and we'll read them off to Megan.
Yeah. Like that quiet bit.
Quiet.
Yeah, no one wants to be the first one to ask a question, right? Especially when it comes to leadership, it's putting yourself in that real vulnerable position of like, am I a good leader?
Yeah, this is Katrina. I guess I will ask the first question. Thank you so much, Megan, for presenting. So I guess like from your journey of like becoming a leader, like when, like, was there like just like one day that you kind of like thinking that, okay, I want to become a leader, or is it just something that kind of like naturally comes to you, or like as your career path goes? Let's try to understand that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So there were a couple key milestones that really gave me the opportunity to step into leadership. But, you know, as I started coaching and looking at what it means to be a leader more and more, I realized that there's those elements of self-leadership that you're bringing to the table every day. So I remember client relationships that I was put into where I had a really clear vision of stepping into a very challenging role, what I wanted that role to be like, what I wanted it for my team. I actually collaborated with, I had a business, and my business partner, her original partner, unfortunately passed away, which is kind of a sad story. So we're not going to lament on that, but it definitely shook a team. And we were a group of contractors at the time, all working for one business and white labeling underneath those services. So no one was really an employee. And I watched that team and that group come together to really want to see that vision through. And that was kind of my call to leadership at the time, actually, where I had started my own business. I was on my own. I didn't want to lead anybody. I was like, I'm just going to do my own thing. It's going to be amazing. No one's going to hold me back. And then I watched this group and this community fight to survive through a really challenging time and step into a place where I was able to support and guide them through that transition. So sometimes it's really obvious and sometimes, you know, it's just the decisions that you make on how you want to chart your own path or how you want to show up for a conversation.
Thanks, Megan. All right, we've got a couple of questions coming into the chat now. So the first one here is from Veronica. And Veronica says, hi, Megan. Speaking of the am I a good leader question, what are your tips for self-leading away from imposter syndrome, which is something I feel that a lot of ladies I know struggle with. P.S. Love this presentation.
Thank you very much, Victoria. So imposter syndrome is so incredibly difficult to overcome. I don't think anyone is ever really over it. And there's always something that's going to be a nagging voice at every level, truly, because as soon as you reach that next level, you have a whole bunch of new challenges and you're always just a little bit afraid, or at least I like to stay just a little bit afraid because that's what pushes you into growth. So overcoming it, I'm going to go back to what you think, feel, say, and do. If you can choose to feel differently about something and not feed into some of that fear and start focusing on the positive aspects, focus on what your wins are, focus on something else to take away some of that trepidation for it, and build that confidence up as much as you can is a great way. How you think about it is totally just a mind shift for it, right? So thinking that you can do it, and again, focusing on some of those positive aspects. But what you say and you do and how you show up, I think it's really about how you choose and what your vision is for it. And if you're motivated by it and you're excited about it, then being in that position, yeah, it's going to get scary every once in a while. I'm not going to pretend like it doesn't, but there's something bigger that you're working towards and you have a bigger goal that's going to continue to inspire you and push you further.
Thanks, Megan. The next question is from Kim. What kind of opportunities or activities in the work environment should we be looking out for to help build our leadership skills or work on influence?
Yeah, great question, Kim. I love internal networking. And that's a term that I didn't get a ton of when I was in big agencies, but I did pretty organically, just because I always loved meeting other people and connecting with other teams. That's actually how Katrina and I met, where we were in totally different departments. And we forged those relationships and bonds across it. So as much as you can, get out of your specific circle and find other people in the organization that you can connect with, that you can collaborate with, that you can learn from. That's what's going to help you with your influence.
That's a great one, Megan. Some of the most successful people I've worked with are great at internal networking. So that's a good tip. Okay, another question from Carolyn. What exercises and/or practices can an individual or team use to build their emotional intelligence and how they communicate?
The fact that you're asking that question means that you're probably leaps and bounds above most people, right? So if you've got a team and you're trying to raise the emotional intelligence or try to communicate differently, I love DISC. I don't know if anyone has taken a DISC, it's not a personality assessment, it's a behavioral assessment. And it's a tool that I am a huge fan of. And it really kind of charts you between 4 different quadrants: introvert, extrovert, task-oriented, people-oriented. So you can look at it really, really high level and start to understand why people behave, how they communicate, and what their needs are. And when you start putting people into these buckets, I know people don't like to be in buckets or boxes, but it's really illuminating and empowering to understand what someone else needs so that you're either able to adapt and adjust to it, and they're also able to understand what you need really, really well. So I would look into the DISC model.
Awesome. Thanks, Megan. So we are just at time for the end of your Q&A. So Megan, thank you so much. And Megan will be bopping around to different breakout rooms later, but we'll also be sharing ways later that you'll be able to connect with her after the event. So a silent round of applause from all of your homes for Megan. Thank you, Megan. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So up next, we're going to be hearing from Meena Kothandaraman, who is a founding member of Twig and Fish, a research and strategy practice based in Boston. And her talk tonight is called Does Authentic Leadership Exist? Challenging Our Perspectives. So Meena, you can take it away and share your screen.
Awesome. Just give me 1 second. Make sure this works. Can everybody see my screen okay? Get some thumbs up. Awesome. Okay. I'd just like you to know that in and of itself is an amazement, because half the time it'll be on the wrong screen and somebody will be like, you're showing us your notes. Can you show us something else? So yes, exactly. I hope you guys are doing great. I raise my gin and tonic to all of you because it's very important for us to enjoy the evening to whatever you are drinking. Du bon santé, part of my French background. Have a great life, enjoy yourselves, and relax this evening. Think, reflect, all that fun stuff. So here's what we're going to do. I am so thankful to Megan for starting because I just love a lot of the things that she shared. So as much as possible, I'm actually going to sort of leverage what she shared in what I'm going to share while she sips her wine. I'd just like you to know, I was just looking at myself from the side and I feel like the Queen of France. Like if I just did a headshot, like if somebody cut me off right here, I literally feel like I could be just like a headshot with a little frill on the side. So just wanted to point that out. Anyhow, here we go, guys. So does authentic leadership exist? I was asked this question by my lovely peers at Ladies at UX Boston, who I have the highest regard for. And thank you, first of all, to all of you guys for pulling this together and bringing the coast together. We're so appreciative. So when they asked me this question, I was like, okay, it's an interesting question. That's the way I started, if I'm to be fair about it. So what I want to do is just actually be an open book and share with you my thoughts on authentic leadership. So first thing I'll say is greetings to everybody, both coasts. Second thing I'll say is I love tweeting. So here's the Twitter handles. If anybody wants to go crazy, have fun at it. So let's talk about it. Authentic leadership. Whenever I have anything that's big and difficult, I find I actually break it up. That's the first thing I do. So go back to my elementary school roots and think, okay, you got a big word, cut it up into small pieces. So what are we going to do? We're going to talk about authentic and we're going to talk about leadership. Pretty simple, right? So it's important to understand that these are two really heavy words that we all probably have a lot of association with and possibly even bias, some baggage, whatever you want to use, throw it on there. But there's lots of stuff basically going on with these two words. So what I thought was I wanted to start with the word authentic, because authentic, I think about the way we think about being authentic is really being in touch with ourselves, making sure we understand who we are, why we are, what we are, and sort of like our, almost like our little processes that we have going in our head where we sort of talk to ourselves is the way I think of authenticity. So what I've done is I had given a course at University of Wisconsin a while back, and we had this discussion, and it's funny, just even from the students, I was able to sort of come up with a model that I wanted to share with you guys that I've since shared at a lot of different places that I feel is sort of accurate, but I'm absolutely happy to have anybody punch holes in it. So what I find is that there's a bit of a continuum. When we talk about authenticity, let's start inward first, because I would say a big part of it is looking inward, is really thinking who we are, what we are, why we are. A lot of the stuff that Megan actually just touched on. I really love that she used the word position herself, or the phrase position yourself, because it's so true. It really means that you sort of need to stop, figure out where you are, figure out what's going on in your minds, and you do need to lead yourself first. Quoting Megan again. So let's start there. Let's look inward. I was listening, Megan. See, I was listening. So we need to start inward. Okay. So the first thing we tend to do is learn, right? So what do? We all go to school. We all do our stuff. We're all excited, and we are sponges. We are absolute sponges. We get a chance to learn not only from our peers around us, but there's just so much, especially nowadays, knowledge just abounds everywhere. But then what happens is we move a step forward and we start to apply. Most often when you really start to learn, you really have to apply in order for the two to sort of work in some sort of synergy with each other. So we find that, okay, we take these thoughts, we start to move them forward, and we try them out. Sort of a normal thing for all of us to do. But then we get to a point where we start to scrutinize. We start to go, okay, I'm applying this, but is it really what should be applied right now? Maybe something else should be applied. And we start to sort of question ourselves. We question possibly our frameworks. We look for other scaffolding maybe that'll help us sort of climb out of whatever it is we're trying to do. But we really start to dig a little bit deeper. And I have to say, as I've been teaching at Bentley University for 20 plus years now, I have to say it's really fun when people start to scrutinize. I see this with students all the time. I see this with clients. I see this with peers. I have gone through this myself. Is you start to scrutinize and you ask yourself hard questions because you're like, really, what is going on here? And this is all, again, in your mind. It's your little playground. Have fun with it. And really you sort of give yourself permission to look around and explore. But then something really interesting happens. You can only, and I used the word, I was thinking about what word to use here, but I used the word stew. But I realize stew can sort of be construed in a negative way, but I do not mean it negatively. But you can only sort of percolate. Coffee. Okay, let's take percolate. You can percolate. Rosie. So you can percolate for so long before you start to actually let go of some of these thoughts. They start to come out. And now we've moved from our little playground inside our heads to let's get it out there, because you're boldly taking that step forward and thinking, okay, I'm actually going to challenge. I'm going to challenge what's out there now because I have taken the time to think things through. I'm a thoughtful person, but something is different here. Something is happening, and I have to think a little bit more deeply about it. So we think about challenging. And then what do we do? Well, it's not good enough, as we all well know, it's not good enough to challenge. You also have to think about, okay, you can't just say this doesn't work. You also have to think about new ways of looking at this and possibly even providing solution. And that's where I feel there's a bit of growth, a little bit of fun in each and every one of us. And that happens repeatedly. We start to discover, we start to look at things in a different way. We start to connect dots in ways that are really, really powerful. And we start to see beyond just the basics that we might have been taught. And then finally, the biggest thing is we start to contribute. And I think when you get to that point of contribution, that is when you start to really feel like, okay, I can do this. I sort of didn't know what to call this. This is sort of, if you think of the horizontal axis, literally, the continuum is experience. It's really understanding what it is that you're going through. It's understanding all of those inside emotions, so much of the say, do, feel framework that Megan just touched upon. But you have milestones, just as she said, you have milestones that you step into. You're trying to approach that toward leadership, but you have these moments in time. Now, the best part about it is, I'm going to layer this with a little bit of my own personal opinion, is it's not a one-time shot. I feel like a lot of times the way it's presented is you go down this path and boom, you've started to contribute and you must be a leader. Ta-da, it doesn't work that way, guys. And I'll say that from my personal experience. I'm sure one of you will say, you know what, Meena, I can prove you wrong. I absolutely believe you can, but I'm going to speak very specifically here to my own experience as a woman, as a colored woman, as a woman who's gone through 30 years of this funny industry and had to deal with some interesting stuff along the way. Laura, I'd like you to know I didn't swear. You should be very proud of me. So literally, I go through this and I think, okay, you know what? This is actually very much a loop. And it's almost more than a loop. It's a bit haphazard because there's some things I am still learning about now, which I absolutely love. And there's many things I feel that I challenge. There's a lot of things I'm scrutinizing inside my head still, but I'm not going to say it out loud. And then there's things that I feel I can contribute to because I have thought about the authenticity in me and making sure that when I come out and I say something, at any one of these steps, wherever I choose to vocalize, I make sure that it's really impactful and well thought out. It's mindful. I am present and I'm very much in that moment. So I sort of give this to you as my description of authenticity in my world. And I share this just from my personal experience, and it's something that I love talking about. So hit me up afterwards if you ever want to chat more about this. So that's authentic, right? We feel good about authentic. Now let's talk about leadership. Okay. So leadership, really interesting word. I will be very honest with you and very upfront. I get asked very often, so do you consider yourself a leader in this field? And my straight out answer is no. My answer is solidly no. And the reason is I thought about it. I thought, why do I keep on saying no? Like, why do I have this aversion to this word leadership? And I thought about what it was. So I actually went back, and this was quite a few years back, and I started to think what actually inspires me? Like what do I think about? How do I think of leadership, and how do I sort of embrace that concept of leadership? So what I did was I decided that instead of looking to other humans, I thought actually animals teach us a lot more about leadership. Sometimes I think animals are a wee bit more compassionate than humans as well, but we won't go there. Let's not talk about that. Let's just talk about the animals. Okay? So animals, in case anybody wants my slides, I know you're probably dying for them, but here they are. So animals, all right? Let's talk about lions just for a second. And I'm showing you 4 examples, guys. This by no means is exhaustive, okay? You can pick up whatever animals you want to, but I'm just going to go through a few that I thought about. I thought about lions and tigers and all that stuff, but let's say lions and their clan, their team. Very role-based, wouldn't you say? There is one person in charge to keep security at bay, make sure everybody's safe. You have the person who runs out to get the food. You have the person who also takes care of straying little ones that go off into different places where they shouldn't be. And you probably have somebody who's in charge of the family portrait. Just making that one up. But the deal is that there are roles. It's very role-based. It's everybody's sort of got a job to do. You put your head down and you sort of get it done. So I thought, okay, there's lions. There's also elephants. Love elephants. I absolutely adore elephants. Elephants are interesting though. Thought about that a little bit more too. Talk about leadership. We all know the matriarch, right? The matriarch leads. And in some interesting way, if there is ever an impasse where they don't have an answer, the matriarch just forges forward. They're wise, they're based on experience, they have that knowledge, that depth, that just instills confidence. They all move forward. They follow the matriarch. So I thought to myself, okay, that's really nice. Is that how I consider leadership? And there are big ones or small ones. There's a lot of love. There's a lot of caring. There's much compassion, not only to the people in their own herd, but sometimes to the ones outside of them as well. So much compassion. Okay, that's a really good thing. So there's an element I want to sort of take away as well. Ants. Who doesn't love ants? Come on, man. Ants, right? Ants. And then you notice that there's the one in the middle, right there. That's supersized. Supersized ants. What do? That's the queen ant. Queen ant literally tells everybody what to do. Really not a lot of thinking going on. There's just a lot of action. Just do it, go, 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 run, run, run. And then, yeah, I might mate with one of you and you'll die. Not a good model. Let's keep moving, okay? So then we come to geese. I'm just going to say they're Canada geese. If anybody knows why I'm smiling, just going to say they're Canada geese. But I'm Canadian, a bit of an affinity here. Canada geese, let's talk about these guys. So everybody's always noticed they fly in a V, right? They fly in a V. They're very thoughtful about what they do. They honk to support each other, right? It's very rare that you see geese flying overhead and it's super silent, right? They think about each other. They honk. It's to support each other. It's to encourage each other. They always fly one above the other. It's never flat up. There's always a stilted approach. Why? It helps draft the air. It's for energy. It's to create good energy for that person up front who's leading the team. And the best part about this, I'm going to take that little pregnant pause for that fabulous birthing thought. The best part about this is that when the leader actually gets tired, they start to drop. You'll notice interesting stuff. Somebody else picks up the slack and says, I'll take over. And they'll get to the front and they'll switch positions. I'm just going to pause for a moment there. That to me is really beautiful in a way that resonates with me. So I'm going to speak to me. There's no one right way to interpret this, guys. I like the roles. I sort of like some of the roles of the lions. I love the compassion of the elephants. I don't want to eat my coworkers or kill them. So let's leave that one aside. But the geese are really collaborative. They're working together. There's that motion. There's that constant motion. And there's never one leader. And I think that in some ways, I really thought about that deeply. And I thought, I like that because you know what? There are times that I have led, and there's other times I am more than happy to follow. Because somebody else who actually might be a little bit further down in their belief of their authenticity and sort of a little bit further back in the pack, actually at that precise moment, based on what is going on, can actually step in and be the leader. Which is why when people ask me then, and I had to sort of scrutinize this for myself because I don't like it when I answer a question going, I'm not a leader. I don't really they're like, why don't you think you're a leader? I'm like, not a very good answer, right? So I should have something. And I really thought about it. And this is what I believe it should be. So it's easier then to talk about what it isn't and why it isn't. This is just my world. And this is how I deconstructed something that I felt was hard. Because unfortunately, as I was moving through my career, most of the people that I would be able to look up to were not women. And I really miss that. I really, really miss that. And now I cherish so much of what we have in a way that it's sort of hard to almost comprehend sometimes and even communicate. But if we look at these details, for me, there was some comfort, there was some confidence to really emulate the geese, to step up when necessary and step down when necessary. You know, I think of my colleague that I work with. I've managed large teams and now I'm in a practice of micro agency, nice 2 people. But there are times when, you know, even though people will say, oh, well, you have so much more experience than her, they make these grand assumptions. But I look at her and I go, wow, there are some things I'm just so happy to literally sit in the back seat. She takes over. She knows exactly what she's doing. She's absolutely brilliant. So I've done this with clients. It's not that any one person in my book has to lead. It's everybody has to get to the goal. We all have to support one another. That is a big part of it. But I think there's that choice, back to what Megan was saying. We have the choice on how we want to respond. We have the choice to do these kind of things. We have to think about those choices carefully. So I asked a very similar question, same way that Megan did. What does authentic leadership then mean for you? So you think about these moments, you think about where you position yourself, you know, in this large spectrum of things. You might think of some other animals, you might think of people, nothing against that. You might think of somebody, but what drives you? What gives you that sense of, you know, Shifu from Kung Fu Panda, of inner peace, right? It's that inner sense of balance. It's that inner sense of comfort and confidence. And the authenticity part, I find, you know, people do worry. There was a question on the imposter syndrome, and I do believe that exists. I'm never going to say it doesn't. But the thing is, you know, be happy with yourself, be authentic to yourself, and it becomes easier. It really does. And I can say this from all the times I've been in a meeting and been a single female among so many other males. It does make that difference. So our question to you is really, and I hope I'm not over time, but our question to you really is, What is authentic leadership to you? So we'll move into our debrief, but I just wanted to say thank you so much again for letting me share my thoughts. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Meena. And a silent round of applause for Meena. That was wonderful. We've got a couple of minutes for
Thank you.
any questions that anybody has for Meena. So same thing again, please put them in the chat and we'll read them off to.
I'm just smiling because my eye went right to pizza in the chat. That's what just saying. And I know Rosie had a hand in it somewhere. I'm sure of it. Positive.
Well, all right. Any questions for Meena?
As people are thinking about the questions, I just want to make one comment. Meena, thank you so much for the presentation. And I think one really, really cool point that you made is about like stepping up and stepping down when necessary. I think that's really important skills as a leader. And well, you say you're not leader, so
Not a leader.
Yeah. So that's actually my question. So when you're like saying that you're not a leader, so I think like this situational leaders and this like leader managers, like manager doesn't mean they're leaders. So like how do you feel about like the structure within an organization where they name people managers, but then they may not be a leader. They just given the title to do a slightly different job. So how do you feel about that?
It's funny you say that. So just recently, and I had this happen to me as well. So I'll relate this back to, you're not defined, this is back to that authenticity part. You're not defined by a role. You're not defined by a title. You're not defined by any of that. Some people naturally know how to bring people together. It's, I always ask people when I work with them, even with clients, I ask odd questions, to be honest with you. I'm like, so what is your sort of super strength? What are you bringing to this? What can we count on you for? And they'll be like, oh, I'm just very good at scheduling and very good. I'm like, no, not tasks. I'm like, I'm talking emotion. Like, what is your thing? I really love having fun. I really like making people laugh. I love hearing that kind of stuff, because it's those kind of people who sometimes quietly lead without even knowing it. But they don't have the title, and it's all of the above. They really have to be given credit. And it's again, it's not like one person needs to be extolled and put on yes, you might say that there's one person who does have to sort of they might be responsible for something and have to respond for a team with you all the way. I understand that there has to be some of that, but it's like we extend that so much further. It's the baggage that we put on that person when truthfully, it doesn't need to be. It just does not need to be. And I can tell you from my personal experience, I have proved that to myself time and time and time again. We don't need to put that kind of not only baggage, but also burden, I feel, to some extent. Because sometimes, you know what? I don't know about you guys. I wake up and my mind is blank and somebody's raring to go. Or I'm not a morning person. Get me up in the evening, I'm all yours. But in the morning, I'll just be sitting there going, Olga, just take over, please, because I'm not awake yet. Haven't had my coffee. Rosie did not give me my coffee this morning. So it's, there's all of that we have to think about, where there's a lot that we place on those roles and names. And sometimes you wonder, like people in startups, they always say, oh, I had to wear so many different, had to do so many different hats, but they're really happy people. They're really excited. And then they suddenly go into the structure. The structure just sort of drains everything out of them. I don't know if I directly answered your question, but let me know if I didn't.
Thank you, Meena. All right, we've got a question from Amy. And Amy says, my question for Meena, how do you handle dealing with difficult coworkers, whether they are difficult themselves or you find yourself unable to get along well with them for whatever reason? Thanks, especially when it's a necessary collaboration.
Fair enough. My approach has always been, and with no disrespect, I will say I've been really blessed to have very few difficult coworkers, but I've definitely had difficult clients. But if I think back to difficult coworkers, my poor clients are going to be like, what the hell did we do? But what I tend to do is there's always other stuff going on. And sometimes everybody reacts differently to that. So I find that just taking that moment of being personal and being honest. So this is my authentic self. I will sit them down and go, I'm really getting the sense that we're not working together well. I'm getting this sense. I want to put it out on the table. I want to be completely transparent. And I want to ask you for your help. How can we work together? This is what I'm noticing. This is what I can do. And it's not ever attacking, because that can always be a tough position to be in. You don't want to be the person sort of put on the spot. This is what I've observed, and I want to be able to do a better job of supporting you as well. And I take it very much from my feelings, my perception, focusing on fact though, and not like fiction. I heard somebody say this. No. This is me. I am talking to you from first person. And I find, honestly, it's like, I don't expect them to respond right away either, but I'm like, I wanted to talk to you directly. I wanted to share this with you because we're working together and I want to have fun with you. I want to have a really great time. And I'd love to be able to figure that out. Now, you might say, Meena, I'm not that confrontational. I would never do that. That's a bad idea. In which case I would say, write it down. Write it down really politely in a way that you feel comfortable with, and share that with them either via email or share it with them. I know it sounds silly, but I'm very old style with research tools and artifacts. Drop them a letter and let them read it so that they are aware. And sometimes it might just be like, oh, I didn't even realize that, because I don't know if I think I've said this so many times with Ladies That UX when I've spoken before. There's a book called The 4 Agreements that I love. And it's just about 4 basic agreements. We grow up with so many agreements thrown at us, applied to us, and, sort of imposed on us. But there are 4 that we cannot break. There are 4 that are pristine. Speak impeccably. I believe Megan just did a great job of talking about that and talking to that. But be impeccable with your word. Take responsibility for your word. Don't say nonsense and then afterwards go, no, that's not what I meant. Well, that came out of your mouth. I'm so sorry. You are responsible for that. So you need to take some responsibility for it. The second one is, don't make assumptions. Wow. I hate to say this. I still struggle with this one. I make assumptions left, right, and center. So I try to just put it out there. Don't take things personally. Sort of not that great at that one either, but I'm working at it. And finally, do your best. Always do your best. And if we sort of have those in front of us, I find as a basic tenet to communication, it can bring people together. I had great leaders around me who inspired me and didn't always see eye to eye with me, but we were very open and honest and transparent with one another. And I think that really impacted me in a wonderful way. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Meena. So we're just about at time to head to our breakout sessions. So everyone, please join me in thanking Meena. Meena, there's a couple of other questions and comments in the chat. So maybe take a look at those, and folks, you can talk about those things in your breakout too if you have more questions or more things to chat about. So again, a round of applause for Meena.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much, Meena. And before we go into the breakout sessions, we're just going to share with you a little bit of what it will look like, because we're going to try something a little different, a bit of an experiment. So please try it out with us. But you'll be put into a random room of about 4 to 5 people, and our goal is really just to give you opportunities to meet different people in the field. So when you get there, please, introduce yourself, talk about where you're from. And then what we're going to do is we're going to share a Google Doc with you. And in that Google Doc, you can see it up here on the screen, actually, right now. Katie's sharing it. In that Google Doc, you're going to see some quick instructions. So you'll pick a note taker in your group, and then you can scroll down and you can see some prompts that Meena and Megan have put together for you to help guide the discussion, and their prompts related to their topics. You don't have to get through all of them. Pick the ones that feel really interesting to you and that are things that you and your group want to talk about, and then just grab a bullet below the prompt and type your answer. So we're all going to be in this one doc, but the goal is to have a place where we can all look back in the future and see how different people, what they're chatting about related to leadership and related to these prompts. So I hope that that's clear. We're going to share this doc with you all right now in the chat. So let's make sure we do that before we send you off. One moment. Okay. So, all right, here is the link to the doc. So open up that link. You might, I'm not sure if you're going to lose it when you get to the breakout room. So give it a quick open before you head over there. And yeah, just take some notes in there. No, don't worry about formatting. Just keep it casual. All right, bear with us while we send you to your breakout rooms. Zoom, for those of you who are new to breakout rooms, Zoom will like close for a second and then send you off to the breakout room. So just bear with us. All right, I think everyone is back here now. So just before we wrap up, we wanted to just take a few minutes and acknowledge some of the things that you wrote about in your breakout rooms. So, you know, Megan and Meena, please take a look at the doc, see if anything resonates with you. While you're doing that, I'm just going to pull out a quick bullet here that one of the rooms talked about that really resonated with me. So this one is around the question, where do you have the biggest challenge with communication? And a group wrote, establishing relationships and trust is really important, can help counter communication challenges or realign as a team. Speaking frankly is easier when you have relationships. And this really resonated with me as a design manager. I mean, this is one of the most important things that I think about with my team is if we don't trust each other and we don't have like opportunities to bond with each other, then how are we going to give each other, you know, good design feedback and those sorts of things that we need to be able to give to each other, and we need to be able to trust each other to know that it's not being done with any malice. So that really resonated with me. Megan or Meena, anything in there that resonated with either of you?
Just popping in it now. I was having such good conversations. You guys, I love the breakout rooms. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm also looking through it. I might not be able to be too speedy. And so much nicer when I can just hear everybody and punch in and out and see what's going on. And of course, I got in a group that was so fascinating. The one thing I will share, just looking at a few of the upfront notes here, the one thing I'll share personally is there is, and I just mentioned this to the women just as I was finishing my talk and sort of breaking out to a group, is there are a lot of ways to look at leadership. And unfortunately, most of them have been very male defined and defined in a way where, here's another maybe possibly contentious statement. I don't really care for Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In book. I don't believe we should be leaning in. We should be defining and designing what's right for us. Women are not men. Let's just call a spade a spade. So to me, I've been a bit of a challenger the way I look at things. I don't just take things at their face value. So I would say think carefully about some of the constructs that are around you, and almost it's back to that sort of scrutinize moment. And this is where I say that loop is continuous. I scrutinized, I thought, is this right for me? Is this making me feel good? Is this making me feel right about where I am and what I'm doing? Sometimes those constructs were not made for women, and that makes a huge difference. So as women who rise up in the organization with roles, with titles, I think it's very, very important for us to, you know, we hear about being supportive to one another, being encouraging of people around us, but also if you have the opportunity to start reassessing what it means and have those conversations with people. And I've been in organizations where they're doing that now, and it's really wonderful because it's not a one size fits all. So I'll leave with that.
I really loved hearing how everyone felt really empowered and reflective and kind of focused. Focused is going to be one of my words, but really getting that energy and giving kind of new life to how you're approaching leadership and taking that moment to pause and think about what you want out of it has been a really big takeaway. And I love hearing that from everyone else.
Thank you both so much. And thank you both again for the amazing, amazing talks tonight. We're so grateful to know you both and to have had you speak tonight for our communities. And thank you, ladies at UX Seattle. You are all amazing as well. So you've seen somebody has been posting in the chat how to continue the conversation at the Ladies at UX Seattle Slack. Join Ladies at UX Boston on LinkedIn. Make sure you're part of our meetup groups, and we will see you next time. Thank you all so much.
Awesome. Thank you
Thank
again, guys,
you.
for organizing. If anybody needs to reach out with more questions, please reach out. I'd love to continue the conversation.